Time to get out of bed. Time to put on the radio. Oh, you've already put it on.
Hi guys, welcome back to 93.7 with the Scarlet Breakfast Show. I'm your host Michael Kabi, and with me today I have a very special guest called Jane Chungi, a professor of IR at Riara University. Today our topic of discussion is the Big Four agenda. Let's jump straight into it. So Jane, what's the Big Four agenda?
Thank you very much for inviting me to the studio today. I appreciate this time. Like we all know, the Big Four agenda is a Jubilee's government promise to the nation of Kenya for their 2016 campaigns. And so the president and his government are rolling out a signature agenda that will, I believe, will not only go through the 5 years that President Kenyatta is leading the government, but will continue even after he has left. So what is the big agenda? The Big Four, actually it's called the Big Four agenda. So what is it about? Apart from what I've just mentioned, it is also about leaving a positive legacy by 2022 when President Kenyatta finishes his tenure of being a president in Kenya. Now, basically, the Big Four agenda is an accelerated development agenda designed to help Kenya achieve the socio-economic pillars of the Vision 2030 and the 2010 Constitution. So in essence, it's nothing new. It's just picking out what was there, especially in the Moi Kibaki initiated Vision 2030, and calibrating it into 4 agendas. Now, the first agenda is manufacturing.
Those are the key pillars.
Yes, the key pillars are manufacturing. We will talk about them in detail a little later. Then there's food and nutrition. And then there's health. That is ensuring access to health for all in Kenya by 2022. And then there is housing. And the focus here is building 500,000 low-cost houses for Kenyans in the coming day.
Many young Kenyans don't really understand what the Big Four agenda means for them, maybe their friends and their families. So would you explain why it's important for the youth in Kenya to know more about the Big Four agenda?
Well, first of all, we must understand that the Big Four agenda offers facilitative measures for the youth. And basically what it means is the youth are coming in to be empowered through this Big Four agenda to maximize their potential. And number 2, it is hoped that by initiating this agenda, that there will be very many job opportunities created for the youth, because really the new jobs being created are for the youth, because they are the majority of our in our population, and the government is hoping and believing that it's going to inject a lot of money in the Big Four agenda. And in injecting money, we all know in an economy that has money, then there is a lot of movement of money. There is a lot of creative, innovative ideas that are going to be put into place by our youth, and this is going to be very helpful for them to get job opportunities or even create jobs themselves to accelerate this community called Kenya.
We've heard that the government are taking steps, and they've given us various reports on how they're doing it. But would you like to explain what the practical steps are in implementing Kenya's Big Four agenda?
One example, the practical thing is like, for in the past, we have not had such a great encouragement for people to register with NHIF. Now our youth, even in the secondary schools, are being encouraged to join and register with NHIF so that when they are sick or they need medical attention, they can be treated for free by the government. And the practical steps also are whereby our youth are going to be encouraged in what we call maximization of productivity in areas of comparative advantage. And we know that the Kenyan youth, for example, are very good in technology. So we are seeing the government working very hard to make sure that there is internet everywhere in Kenya, for example.
Now we're going to go for a short commercial break. This is 93.7, the Scarlet Breakfast Show.
Head one more for the road. Are you sure you are okay to drive? Every 51 minutes, one heart stops beating due to drunk driving. Do not let it be yours. Drink responsibly, designate a sober driver, and remember, any alcohol is too much alcohol for the road. Or else, this could be you.
Welcome back to the Scarlet Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Michael Kabi, and with me in studio is Jane Chungi. We're talking about the Big Four agenda if you're just joining us. And now we're going to break down the key pillars of the Big Four agenda.
The president of Kenya has initiated manufacturing, which is a very interesting thing, because if we think about China and where China is now, China is where we were 30 years ago. China was where we are now. They were just starting to think about innovation. They were starting to think about manufacturing. They were starting to think about industrialization. And they did it quietly within their country. And 30 years later, they have emerged as one of the big economies of the world. And so for the youth, the government is very interested in the same phenomena repeating itself in Kenya. So manufacturing in Kenya is one of the things that will revitalize the economy, give our young people jobs to do, not only employment jobs to go out there and look for employment, but they can be employers themselves. And so the government has come up with its own agenda of looking at dead industries in Kenya, like the Kikomi that died many years ago, and Rivertex in Eldoret, and other manufacturing initiatives.
Next, we go into the universal housing.
We all know in Kenya how difficult it is when it comes to housing. Many people spend so much money paying for house rent. So the government saw this as a felt need amongst Kenyans, and therefore is partnering with private industries to come up with low-cost housing for the majority of Kenyans who are in that cadre of low-cost housing. And therefore, when it takes off, then most of our people will have a house that they can live in and pay rent and keep paying rent, and in the next 25 years, they will have acquired that house, and that will be facilitated by the government and the private sector to encourage our own people.
Okay, next we go to our next pillar that many Kenyans suffer from: low health care and the high cost of healthcare in the country, and the Big Four plan is supposed to increase availability of health services to many Kenyans. So would you like to expound more on the healthcare sector?
In Kenya, we are aware that it's been very difficult for people suffering from various ailments to get good supportive healthcare. And as a result of this, we have lost lives. We have had people suffer for very long periods. We have had families suffer financial loss, because when you have a sick person and you don't have help from the government, then the money comes from the pockets. Some people have been kicked out of jobs because they didn't have enough money, because they couldn't continue working because they were sick, and so on. But the government has come up with a universal healthcare situation whereby they will enable as many Kenyans as all of them, if possible, to get into a cover system. And we already have this one in the NHIF system, where many people have registered, and issues that are difficult to deal with, like cancer. Sometimes NHIF is paying even for people to go to India and to get the diagnosis, like with MRI, that is so expensive. NHIF is paying.
Next question is, what are we as a country set to gain from the Big Four agenda?
Wow. There is so much going for us as a country. Like I mentioned earlier on, there is going to be manufacturing on a big scale that is being encouraged at this particular point. There is going to be job creation for our youth as they come out of schools. There is a lot of encouragement for innovation and creativity in all sectors of life. And as a country, when money is injected in this Big Four agenda, then there is going to be a revitalized economy. The shilling is going to remain strong, like you all noticed. The shilling, despite and in spite of what has been happening in Kenya this first 3 months of the year of January, the shilling has remained very strong. It has remained resilient. People thought by what happened in Dusit attack and many other corruption issues that have come up that the shilling would lose value, but the shilling has remained intact. We could say when a country's economy remains stable despite different challenges, then that is a good thing. So in essence, what we are saying, Kenya is set up for big things. People have been released, the citizens are released to participate in the Big Four in whichever way they can, even in little ways like just doing some irrigation, even in small ways like doing some little packing of some little things in the market. Everybody is out there, and therefore all are holding hands to make sure that the Big Four agenda takes off. And like I said earlier when we started this program, I said China was where we are now 30 years ago. So this generation is bound to see a lot of development than the former generations and all the generations that have passed. Kenya is going to be, in Africa, one of the most developed countries in the near future.
Stay tuned for more on the Big Four agenda. Now let's go for a short break.
He knows your music, he speaks your mind, and he's got you locked on.
Today in our It's a Strange World segment, we start with an unusual story, what some would term as bizarre and out of this world, and that is the fact that the latest millionaire on block is a cat by the name Chopet, who according to recent reports is set to inherit some of the late Chanel designer Karl Lagerfeld's estimated $195 million fortune. This comes almost a month after the death of her owner and has shocked the world, leading many of us to ask, is this even possible? And more importantly, where can we sign up to be this lucky cat's temporary custodian? And in France, this is according to recent reports that a French teenager by the name Adrien Lacatali has turned parts of the Bible and Quran into DNA and proceeded to inject them into his body, one text into each thigh. This brings a whole new meaning to internalizing the Word of God.
Stand by, I'll be right there.
He knows your music, he speaks your mind, and he's got you locked on. Call him K, cause you're okay with
Welcome
him.
back to Scarlet Breakfast. If you're tuning in right now, we are joined by the extremely knowledgeable Jane Chungi, who is explaining to us about the Big Four agenda. So, we have just gone through all the key pillars of the Big Four agenda. And now my question is, what impact is the agenda going to have on our GDP?
Well, I think Kenyans should be very hopeful, and especially the upcoming youth of our country, because what I think the Big Four agenda is aiming us to reach is a middle income, industrialized nation with a climate resilient, inclusive economy, offering a high quality of life for its people. As you think about the Big Four, if you think of housing, then if you have housing, then you are not struggling to think, where am I going to live? If you have good health, then you are able to work. If you have food, for example, and good food that is nutritious for you, then you're going to be strong to work and our children in schools are also going to be strong and ready to go to school. And if we're industrialized, then we are having a dynamic community of Kenyans who are going to work, not only employed work, but who are also employers and manufacturing different things. And so that is why I say clearly that we are looking to a middle income, industrialized nation with a climate resilient, inclusive economy, offering a high quality of life for its people. So I think we can all say welcome to a nation that will have quality of life for its people.
Lastly, in your personal opinion, when it comes to certain components of the Big Four agenda, such as achieving universal health coverage, do you think it will be possible to have achieved by 2022, or is the government overestimating the task ahead?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think for anybody in leadership position, you must have a vision of where you want to take your people. And I think the Jubilee government is doing a good thing in establishing a vision of this kind. And I would encourage us to also have hope as people in a country like ours, because like we have seen in health, for example, we have seen improvement. And if I may highlight the Linda Mama initiative by NHIF, which is a public funded health scheme that is taking care of women, pregnant women, mamas who could otherwise not get any support or any help. They are getting free treatment, they are getting free consultations, and not only that, they are also getting help when they give birth to the babies. I think that's a great thing for us, and it is free, and in many cases people would not get such initiatives coming forth from any government. Now, I must underscore here that the government really may not have the capacity, like we are saying, to implement all these Big Four agenda. That's why, for example, it's bringing in the private sector, for example, in the housing pillar, to have people invest financials from outside who will come and inject capital and support the process of housing Kenyans. It is important also, I think, at this juncture to mention it is important to bring all stakeholders into this thing, because it's the Kenyan boat. We are in it together. So we should have people like senators come in and support it. We should have people like MPs come in and support it, and have governors, huko mashinani, and chiefs and everybody else there support this initiative. And then this in itself will ensure that the government is not only facing a much lower cost of implementation for the Big Four, but will also tap into the creative energies of the counties and the private sector, leading to a more vibrant economy. So if all people were brought in, the mama mboga to know I am building the economy by selling this mboga, the mkokoteni man also knowing that I'm building the economy, and everybody in Kenya knowing that they are involved in the big agenda, I think it will be a powerful national initiative that will take Kenya where we never envisaged it will go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jane, for sharing your knowledge with us on the Big Four agenda. I hope all you listeners have learned something about the Big Four agenda and are probably looking forward to some of what it entails. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me. I hope I have in a little way shed some light and educated a little bit on what we are up to in Kenya. This is our thing, and I think all of us should be feeling like we are contributing wherever we are in the corners of Kenya. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to follow our social media pages. It's Scarlet Media _K on Instagram, Scarlet Media on Twitter, The Scarlet Breakfast Show on Facebook, and don't forget to grab yourself a copy of The Scarlet, coming to you every Saturday.